Hey everyone, welcome to this discussion of scale as part of our ongoing discussion of formalism. And as Bob has told us so often, some art is boring, so what we're trying to do is figure out how do we get there and why does some art get us to here where we say, wow, that's amazing, right? So we've been doing this and looking over the basic foundation and the 7 art elements, which you all found examples of, the organizing variables, and we've also been really exploring different kinds of composition. Well, what we're going to do now is look at what this last stage is here, which is context and scale. And I'm going to leave context as a coming attraction, but tonight I'm just going to talk to you about a scale, right? And how does scale affect our interpretation of what we see? You'd be surprised. It's pretty amazing. For our purposes, we'll break it down to small scale, pedestal scale, human scale, and large scale. And your assignment this week is to find 4 examples of each of them. 4 of small scale, 4 of pedestal scale, 4 of human scale, and 4 of large scale. So that's going to be your assignment. So you say, well, what does that look like? Well, I'll give you some examples right now, starting with simple geometric forms because they're easy to talk about and look at. So let's start with that. And on a small scale, anything you see that's teeny or diminutive, it looks precious, right? And sometimes on that small scale, things will create ornamental patterns and things like that, but they're so small that it's hard to take in details. As you expand to hand scale, as you see John Mason doing here, things become more like studies or maquettes, and those are the things he actually uses to make clay models. Something to manipulate once something is hand scale. It looks like you can manipulate it, or it's puzzle-like or game-like. So it takes on a different feel. And there's a sense of, when you break from that and you get onto a pedestal, at pedestal scale, everything changes. Then there's a sense of sort of deliberate presentation, inviting us to contemplate, right? To investigate the relationship between individual forms, the significance of format and repetition, or the potential anthropomorphism that's created with art. So you can kind of see those figures in there, right? Or other possible meanings with the basic shapes. You start puzzling, thinking, what does that mean? Based on symbolic form, right? So then you switch again, you get a little higher in that human scale. When a form is longer than wide, basically, and about our size, we tend to respond to it viscerally. In other words, physically, we have a response to it. It's a kind of entity at that point because it's sort of the size and scale of us. Even if this association is general and or abstract, like you see here, we still, on some level, register it, and we recognize our common occupation of space with that object. So we respond differently to something that's precious or something that's pedestal size and something that's human scale. There's also a sense of gesture that we recognize, and even if only on the subconscious level, we recognize that something is about our size and shape. It's a peculiar thing, but psychologists have talked about it, and it is something that affects us. At large scale, bigger than life, otherwise simple forms take on epic proportions, like you see that guy, and they become monumental, drawing amplified attention and perhaps causing us to re-examine, a form, type of a form we thought we knew. And this is the Reichstag building, which Christo, draped in order to draw attention to it. That was his whole shtick, was drawing attention to something by veiling it, and suddenly everybody's really interested. It's like clothing. It's kind of a cool thing. Anyways, also the mysterious at a huge scale, right? Or the playful at large scale. There's also the aggressive takes on a different feel with very simple forms and that big as puzzling combinations, right? So, or didactic, truisms and, statements like this. Anyways, so yes, as you've seen in those brief examples, relative size does matter. But let's also consider the effects of scale in relation to something even more familiar. Now, okay, that was kind of abstract geometric forms, but now, what about the human figure? We can all relate to that, right? So at a very small scale, like matchbox size, you can see, whoa, look at those little things in there. Those are like little people. That's weird. Okay. Or coin size. Anyways, at these scales, the figure is diminutive or reduced. It's jewelry size, and we respond to it with the same sense of preciousness that we do at a really well-made piece of jewelry, right? if it's well made. Expanding to the hand size, getting bigger than the jewelry size, the figure becomes a study or a maquette, right? Or, we've all seen these, doll-like or adorable characters, right? But just as easily, those could be stereotypical icons or whatever you want, or surreal enactments or alarming playthings like, it is alarming, isn't it? Here, play with this. Or historic artifacts. And this is one of my favorite pieces. I just love this thing. This dancing girl, look at the dates on this. From Indus Valley, one of the very first civilizations where cities were developed. Yeah, wow. Gorgeous little character. All right. That's all the human figure at small scale. But now you go to the pedestal scale and something switches. What switches at this scale is that work is somehow staged. It's a little, almost artificial, but it is a specific thing to art. You're putting work out there on a pedestal as if its composition is a unique presentation to be contemplated, right? And here, think about this. It's like, okay. Usually with a specific focus, something is highlighted, such as a character study, as Toland does here so beautifully, or some postures or things, like this, I don't know, guy look at the guns in his hand, man. Wow, what a trip. Or empowerment or power. Or fantasy. So there's all these things on the pedestal scale that it makes you think about the idea represented, or humor, or psychological undercurrent, right, or Sergei, or popular culture, or romance, or social dynamics. So anyways, there's all these things, but on the pedestal scale, you think about the ideas in a kind of a different way with a different presentation. And just about anything can be presented in that way on the pedestal scale. But the common element there is, as with your sculptures that you're making now, and I want you to think about this, is a particular point of view, right? Every one of these pieces you've seen has a specific point of view or attitude, and that's what I want you to somehow infuse into your sculptures. So if you take the same human thing, you go to the human scale, the woman they're looking is about the same size as the man the sculpture on the diving board. So the figure is seen as 1-to-1 scale, at human scale. And this changes things a lot because the size of the sculpture is about our size. It emulates us. And this leads us to associate with it and its predicament, right? And respond physically. Ooh, look, that guy's about my size and here I am. And I don't know, it's kind of a weird but cool thing with a sculpture that is a physical figure, but it's also your size. Also, you have an empathic response to it. You somehow feel for it because it's somehow, it's funny, but it's true on the human scale. Along these lines, it's along these lines when it's about your size and everything. You're like, you look at the thing and you think, I too am that, and or you could say, I too could have been there, like these from his I Ching, right? Or like the fearless girl facing down the bull on Wall Street. Anyways, you relate to it because it's about your size. It's literally kind of a stand-in for us. So human scale art is intimate. That's all I can say about that. Like an encounter with another person, with another being, with another, or a sub-personality, or an avatar, something like that. But there's definitely something going on that doesn't go on the other levels. Now, we switch, large scale, all right? So there's David, right? Of course, Michelangelo's. And forms at this scale become, without question, monumental. I mean, they're bigger than us. They're huge, right? They're bigger than life. Completely different character and subject matter, but wow, right? Or here's, Viola Fry's work, but somehow they're also overwhelming at that scale, or can be, or ominous, right? Like, whoa, here. And challenging to our normal perceptions because everything gets switched around. Like, look how the scale has been altered. Large-scale art also potentially describes interactions between things, and that's not uncommon, but more common and typical is that it offers us, this bird's eye view, this, almost like you're able to really inspect something on this weird level that you couldn't otherwise. It's a unique way of seeing something, and it provides an interesting point of view. I mean, that is one incredible sculpture, don't you think? And also you can range in that from like current events, right? And also historic artifacts that also have humongous, monumental scale, like, Christ the Redeemer, like religious homage, the Rio de Janeiro sculpture, or sacred places like these in China, right? And also to futuristic kind of feels, computerized, futuristic, or aspiration. So there's so many scales, ways that scale impacts what you look at and changes what you look at. But scale can also be used as a political device to manipulate. And I just wanted to point this out because it is something that does go on, and it's all around us, and it's good to go, oh, okay, I get it. Fine. For example, propagandist monuments, like these from the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. This one I saw several times when I was in Berlin when I was 20, and then when I, just a few years ago, not 20 anymore. And, things of Lenin and these romantic notions of the social worker, the proletariat, that we're going to save everything as the national saviors. Yeah, it's just amazing to see what they were trying to tell people, about here's how you should live, here's who you are, and all that stuff. Anyways, it is what it is. Or in China, if you go all over China, there's still things of Chairman Mao all over, godlike scale, just huge, throughout the nation, right? But not as many as there used to be, but there still are. Along with equally heroic depictions of common citizens, right? And widely publicized emblems, which this is new because this didn't used to go on, of religious tolerance. They're trying to push that. So they like to, do photo ops with all their, Buddhist shrines, all that stuff. Anyways, these are strategies with large scale work of most governments on some level, even ours. Just saying it's not necessarily good or bad, so long as the individual understands what they're looking at and what might be trying to be communicated to them, even subversively. Perhaps one of the most glaring examples, I think, of public manipulation through large-scale design was by Albert Speers, who was the chief architect and minister of armaments of Nazi Germany, who designed cities specifically proportioned to overwhelm the individual and subjugate them through gigantic structural symbols representing the absolute power of the state. And this was carefully done, and much of it was implemented, although it was blown up towards the end when they were invaded. But anyways, it also included the National Sports Stadium, which you can still go see parts of it, which was ringed with idealized large scale, like doubles, 3 times scale, huge figures as emblematic, representations of racial supremacy, right? And in 1936, the Olympic Games were hosted by the Nazis. And then this happened. And it was amazing. And this man won 4 Olympic gold and kind of screwed up the whole racial supremacy thing. But anyways, the fact that he was there in that whole setting is kind of fascinating to me. Anyways, I only say that because it's true, and scale is used for these reasons, but there are many positive applications for scale. Large-scale art and architecture represents a broad spectrum of symbols, human postures, and potentials, ranging from our insatiable desire to investigate, search, and learn, to our overreaching abilities of mutual support, which are just amazing, to our capacities for intelligent observations, rational action, and altruism, as well as our gastrointestinal tracts and sphincters, which sometimes we bow to those more than anything else. Anyways, that's enough for now, right? I showed you a ton of examples. Now go find 4 examples of the following: small-scale art, 2 examples of clay, 2 non-clay, pedestal scale art, human scale art, and large-scale art. Out of those, find 4 of each. It's a total of 16 examples. That's your R&D for this week. Okay, all done. And I really look forward to seeing what you guys are making. Okay, bye-bye.